All right. We do have Ian Castleberry joining us on the D.C. Kreisman Jewelers Wise Lines and on this Martin Luther King Day. And Ian, happy MLK Day to you, buddy.
You as well. Thank you.
No problem, man. We got a few things to write. It's never slowing down with Major League Baseball, even in the offseason. And today's segment, really part of that. Let's get rolling here, Ian, starting first with the Warriors and the Raiders bailing the Oakland Alameda Coliseum sports complex. The A's are the only remaining client. Okay. Or tenant, I should say. Now, that's where former A's pitching great Dave Stewart comes in. Ian, tell us how Stewart is putting his money, and lots of it, where his mouth is.
Yes, Stewart is an Oakland, California native, and as many listeners probably know, he pitched 8 seasons for the A's, was extremely successful. Dave Stewart submitted a $115 million bid to buy Oakland's share of the Oakland Coliseum and the Alameda County complex. So the other half of the Coliseum complex is owned by the A's team itself. So Stewart wants to develop the site and possibly build a new ballpark there. The A's are currently working on this other ballpark proposal with the Howard Terminal Bayfront property, which would be a smaller 34,000 capacity ballpark. But that project may have stalled out in large part to COVID-19. It's affected the planning, the economic feasibility, obviously any plans toward groundbreaking or construction. So Stewart, I think, is seeing an opportunity here to step in and possibly come up with a new plan. And if he's putting up the money and reducing the city's, the county's financial obligation, I think that maybe they would be more willing, if there's not as much burden on the taxpayers, perhaps Oakland would be more willing to go forward with a new ballpark project there.
Man, I'll tell you what, that there's such great possibilities up there. You know, the A's have been doing this for years. They've been in the Bay Area for years and have had great success at times. Probably, until the Giants had those 3 World Series championships in 6 years. The A's pretty much were the team in the Bay Area in terms of success. Now, fan support, definitely San Francisco. I love what Dave Stewart's doing. Hopefully this can happen. I just think the A's need to get out of that ballpark. It's old, it's big. It has absolutely, no character whatsoever. So we'll see.
And it's hard to get to.
Yeah, exactly, man. Anyone, I went to college 3 hours above the Bay Area at Chico State, and I can tell you when we would come into San Francisco, it was like, oh God, this is horrific. This is as bad, if not worse, than Los Angeles traffic. And, the A's, some years aren't good enough to want to go through all of that just to get to the ballpark. Hopefully they can make that happen. Hey, we had Chris Smith on last segment talking about this. Love to get your thoughts on the Asheville Tourists, became a member of the Houston Astros farm system about a month ago. But Ian, apparently there's a former Astros affiliate not happy with how things turned out with Major League Baseball's contraction.
Yeah, the TriCity Valley Cats, they were not one of the 120 minor league affiliates that was invited by Major League Baseball to continue business and be an affiliate with a major league team. They play in the New York Penn League, which is a short season summer league, which that entire New York Penn League was shuttered as part of Major League Baseball's minor league contraction. So the TriCity Valley Cats, or the ownership group there, is suing the Houston Astros and Major League Baseball for basically or effectively trying to put them out of business. The Valley Cats have joined the Independent Frontier League, but trying to do business as a minor league team without that major league affiliation, just the association with a major league team and having talent that, with the potential and promise of someday being major leaguers is difficult for many minor league teams to exist without. I mean, would the Asheville Tourists be as popular, if they weren't associated in past years with the Colorado Rockies? Now with the Houston Astros, if you didn't know that these players could possibly be major leaguers or at least were drafted and developed by a major league affiliate, would there be as much appeal? So that's the uphill climb that the Tri-City Valley Cats are dealing with right now.
Yeah, you feel bad for them. I mean, really, the Tourists could have been that team, and fortunately they were not. And but I can understand the anger, if you will, and certainly bitterness of those teams that were basically squeezed out and the money lost. And yeah, it's not a good scenario.
There's one thing too. Yeah. The lawsuit has an interesting little sentence in there. I mean, they're saying that the 4 teams that the Astros organization kept, 3 of them are owned by the Astros. And then there was a little, it sounded like a dig that the Asheville Tourists, survived because ownership is tied to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Is that true? Who knows? But, certainly a little bit of bitterness in that lawsuit, I think, with that sentence in the lawsuit complaint.
Well, you know what? For folks who have not been, who are complaining about that, haven't been to an Asheville tourist game, obviously, we know that the tourists get great support here, in our community for sure. It's tough. A lot of, some teams lashing out, by the way, Ian, do you think that more teams will follow suit here with, lawsuits?
Oh, I'm surprised there haven't been more already. Yeah, I think more are going to follow suit. Maybe teams that have even a better case in terms of not being in a league that was shuttered and them being shut out altogether. There are some teams, that were formerly in AA leagues or AAA leagues that have been shut out here. I think, there are definitely going to be more lawsuits to come here.
All right, get the popcorn out. This will be fun. Ian Castleberry is playing with the Wise Guys on the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines. We're talking Major League Baseball headlines presented by our friends at Happy Hill Restaurant. All right, Ian, the Yankees are looking to add 2-time Cy Young Award winner Corey Kluber to the rotation. They got a 1-year, $11 million deal on the table. He last pitched with the Rangers. That did not go well because, he comes with big injury questions, including an elbow issue that kept him out of, I think, most of the shortened 2020 season. All right, this is going to be interesting what's going on here, Ian. It's a bit of a risk, but how do you like this signing?
It's a huge risk in terms of Corey Kluber's recent health and injury history. He's pitched in 8 games over the past 2 seasons, including, as you said, the 2020 shortened season. Only pitched 1 game for the Texas Rangers last year after being traded from the Cleveland Indians. But for a 4 or 5 year stretch, Corey Kluber was one of the best pitchers in baseball. 2-time Cy Young Award winner, won 18 or more games 4 times. If he is healthy, a 1-year, $11 million contract, especially for a team like the Yankees with a bigger payroll, they can afford to take that risk, and it's definitely a risk worth taking. Kluber reportedly had other offers on the table, maybe even more lucrative offers from other teams, but he already had a working relationship with the Yankees' new health and performance coach, Eric Cressy. He's been working, rehabilitating with Cressy on getting back from that elbow injury, strengthening his shoulder. So the Yankees already had a tremendous amount of information on Kluber. Kluber was already familiar with Cressy. So I think that's a big reason why Kluber ended up signing with the Yankees. But the Yankees can also afford to, they don't need Corey Kluber necessarily to be their ace. If he is capable of being a top 2, top 3 starting pitcher for them, obviously that's tremendous. But the Yankees already have Garrett Cole, Jordan Montgomery, Domingo Germán reportedly will be working his way back this season. So if Kluber can be a middle, even a bottom of the rotation starter, at least at first, until he works his way back to full health, I think this is a tremendous signing for the Yankees.
Boy, that would be huge if this works out. But as we agree, it's a risk, and but we'll see how big of a risk as the season. Before you know it, man, spring training is just around the corner. What, another 3 weeks out, roughly 4 weeks out, and we're gonna be back at it again. All right, the Cubs reaching arbitration agreements with third baseman Kris Bryant, shortstop Javier Baez, and Baez looks to stay with the Cubs. But what about Bryant, Ian, whose subpar performance in 2020 has put him on the trading block? I mean, this kid was a fan favorite. Is that still out there for 2021 despite the 1-year deal?
It sure looks like it. I mean, Bryant, you're right. I mean, he was the face of the franchise potential there. This is the kind of player that a team typically builds around, and here the Cubs are reportedly wanting to unload him. They did agree to an arbitration deal, 1-year contract, as you said, for $19.5 million. And the Cubs have been cutting payroll. They traded Yu Darvish. We talked last week about how they let Kyle Schwarber go. So I think the Cubs would like to shed $20 million from their payroll, especially since it appears that Bryant is not interested in signing a long-term contract with the Cubs. That might be mutual. The Cubs might not want to sign Bryant to a long-term contract either. So under contract for 1 year based on his past. He is coming off a poor year, as you said. He batted .206 last year with 4 home runs, dealing with many injuries, only playing in 34 games in that shortened season. But there are plenty of teams who I think would be interested in taking a chance, especially just for 1 year, for a potential MVP if he's healthy at third base. Notably, the New York Mets, the Atlanta Braves have shown interest, the Toronto Blue Jays. So those are 3 teams right there, and there's probably at least another 2 that would be interested in trading for Bryant. Maybe not at $20 million. I don't know if the Cubs would have to eat some of that, but I think they would be willing to do so if it meant clearing some payroll room.
Man. Yeah, I mean, Kris Bryant, remember, Ian? I mean, he was going to be a Cub for life. They loved Kris Bryant. He was, almost on the same level as Bryce Harper.
Oh, Bryce Harper, yeah. No, he was one of the bright young stars, and, you had that whole thing going on with Kris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo, again, faces of the franchise. But I think the fan base has soured on Bryant a little bit, too. I think it's not fair to criticize a guy if he can't stay healthy, but I think the fact that he hasn't been in the lineup that much, maybe some question his toughness or his willingness to play. I know there has been some frustration on the part of Cubs fans with Bryant's inability to stay in the lineup, but more often than not, you want a player like Kris Bryant in your lineup. Again, somebody you can build around if you're able to.
We'll be watching it. This was fabulous. As always, my friend, Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. Boy, what a great job he does. Really thank him. Big time. Of course, Ian, former writer for Yahoo Sports, for Bleacher Report, was the beat writer for the LA Dodgers for SI.com. He covered them during the pandemic. And, of course, does great work for awfulannouncing.com and thecomeback.com, like both on Facebook.